Oh, please, God. Oh, God. Just let me go. Oh. Don't leave me.
We are talking Tour of Duty Season 2, Episode 7. Now this one stars John Shepherd as a character called Taft. And this has an episode where we have two distinct storylines. The primary story here, it focuses on the border between Cambodia and Vietnam and how that kind of sets a chain of events that leads to a somewhat of a tense standoff. So we're introduced to a character called Taft, a soldier who we're led to believe is somewhat experienced, has been there the whole time, but we've just not seen him. And he's part of the kind of the squad, and we have our kind of guys doing a patrol near the border of Cambodia, and the VC are kind of coming along, doing their kind of raids and whatnot, and then running into Cambodia because they know the US military can't pursue them there. And then we have this character of Taft, as I said. He's kind of looking after this new recruit called, they nicknamed kind of Short Round. And they're out there kind of putting sensors to try and track the movement of the kind of the VC. And while Taft and Short Round are out kind of putting these sensors out, Short Round trips a landmine and is literally blown in two. Now we didn't actually see that, we actually just see kind of the aftermath, so to speak. But it's clear that's what they've done. And he's not dead. He's like screaming in pain, and Taft kind of tries to run to his aid, and obviously can't really do anything. And he sees his friend in a lot of pain, and his friend's kind of pleading with him. Shorthand's pleading with him to kill him, so he does. But he's obviously somewhat kind of messed up about it. But this causes him to try and get revenge ultimately by kind of going into Cambodia, which forces the rest of the squad to go and get him. And then ultimately it's the kind of the aftermath of that, because Taft is clearly very kind of messed up by this event. You know, Anderson takes him to see Seymour, and he ends up kind of in a ammo dump with a couple of grenades, threatening to blow himself up. And it's up to Anderson and Dr. Seymour to see if they can talk him down before he gets killed by the MPs. And then there's kind of a second storyline. We have Purcell and Taylor getting talked in to go into Chulai, which is kind of like an off-limits area, to try and see if there's like any kind of black deserters there, you know, African-American deserters that have apparently kind of set up shop there. And they obviously run into VC because that's what happens. So what do we think of this particular episode? Now, I think in a bottle, this episode is pretty good. However, I have some problems in how it sits with the series. Now, let me kind of elaborate a little bit on that. I think John Shepherd as Taft does an excellent job here. I mean, I think this series has been pretty lucky in having some pretty good guest stars and some nice roles within this kind of this series. But quite often, it falls into the same trap of, you know, we have this soldier who we're led to believe has been there all of the time, but we've just never seen him, and it just so happens that in the one episode where we need someone to kind of get written out, it ends up being a guest star who we just kind of meant to believe has been there all the time. You know, it happened in the last episode with Michael Madsen, and it happens in this episode with John Shepherd's character. I think the performance is excellent. He goes from, you know, the brass kind of soldier, being quite kind of fatherly, almost or brotherly to the new guy, to, you know, having to deal with the kind of the gore and the horror of what he sees when his friend is kind of, you know, gravely wounded, and then the kind of the emotional and mental fallout afterwards. So it's a real journey. But once again, it's not only truncated into one episode, it's truncated into one story of one episode. To me, though, it's still a very strong story. You know, I think the writing is strong. I think the interplay with, you know, in the kind of the final section when we have Dr. Seymour kind of talking to him is fantastic. And I think it does portray of what something that visceral can do to a person's psyche, and that is down to the writing and the performances there. So that was good, but I got to be honest with you. I think this is a great example of like I was saying, this would have been far more impactful had it been, for example, Purcell. Now, or you could have used Baker. I mean, this could have been a way to write Baker out, who was obviously in the first season. You know, we never really know what happened to him, and although he comes back for a guest star in the third season. What I feel that they should be doing with these kind of type of characters, it's a little bit like they did with Greiner, played by Carl Chandler, who was in the next season, in the kind of the final few episodes of that. You know, you had a character who was in 3, 4, 5 episodes, and then we can have something happens to him. It has more of an impact because we have got to know the character. You know, when we get these episodes where we all of a sudden have this kind of new soldier there who's getting a lot of dialogue and interaction with the kind of the regular cast, you think, well, he ain't going to be in this episode for very long, or this season for very long, because we know this is the cycle of what this kind of series does. And again, it kind of, although I think in a bottle, this episode does the best possible job of dealing with that storyline, because it's kind of one of these things where, well, we haven't got to know this character, so you don't have that kind of emotional connection to him, but the series kind of wants us to act like it does. I think robs it of some emotional resonance. Like I've said, at the beginning of the episode, it's Purcell and Taft who are the kind of the ones that are objecting not being able to go into kind of Cambodia. So you'd almost think this would be a storyline that you could give to Purcell, and maybe kind of like, you know, it's him who can't deal with it for a while, and is off the kind of the active roster. I mean, it's established in previous episodes that the army kind of wants to kind of get these soldiers back into the kind of active service as soon as possible. So it seems strange that they've kind of introduced a kind of essentially a new character. There's nothing against, there's nothing against that actor. I think he did an excellent job. It's just that obviously it seems to be a little bit of a trend with this series, and it robs you of that kind of emotional resonance. The other thing I would say, I think the kind of the Chulai storyline is, I don't know, it's a little bit silly. We're introduced to another new character who is this French reporter who very easily seems to talk Purcell and Taylor into kind of like going in a restricted area to kind of to see these kind of deserters that he's kind of talking about, and obviously they kind of inevitably run into kind of trouble, and it's up to kind of like McKay and Goldman to come and rescue them. Again, it's I don't know. It just seemed everything happened a little bit too easily there. They were kind of they got talked into it a little bit too easily. You know, and Goldman and McKay seemed to kind of like find them a little bit too easily. And again, it's what I have been talking about previously. These storylines just seemed a little bit too truncated, and the whole kind of like thesis statement of this particular episode was, you know, are Americans going into Cambodia and when they're not supposed to be? And our squad do go into Cambodia for about 30 seconds, and then it's kind of they're out again just to kind of like go and collect Taft. They don't have any interaction with anyone else in there. It's just to kind of like get Taft, who has got him sort of previously, to kind of get revenge for the death of his friend. And again, I felt that whole concept could have been an interesting episode upon itself, but they have to find things for the characters to do to kind of give them kind of storylines to have. Again, you've got all like a few other strands here and there, the continuing romance with Goldman and Alex Devon, etc., etc. But I gotta say, despite my criticisms for this particular episode in regards to this kind of the overall kind of story structure, the episode in itself, certainly the kind of the storyline that involves the character of Taft, is very strong. I don't think the other storyline is nearly as kind of strong as it feels a little bit kind of like thrown together in a bit too quickly, kind of like put to bed. But I will say I do think this is a a strong episode regardless of that. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because I think that the portrayal and the character arc of this character called Taft is so well handled. It's just a shame it wasn't a character who was a little bit more established. Had they again seeded him in a few episodes before this, I think it would have had more resonance. Anyway, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.